Hey guys, James from TDB here, bringing you another Inbetweenisode. Today, going to be talking about a W2T ripe. Again, another one I brought from 2020 that I am finally just now getting to. It is the Planetary shark feed. I had really wanted to try the Camphor Knot from, I think, 2020. And so I added a couple other teas, so there's another one coming up. I forget what the names are. As usual, W2T has very creative names that I have a hard time remembering exactly which one is which. And this is a tea that is pretty interesting. It was pretty affordable when I bought it, and it remains so. It was $23 back in 2020. So it's $26 now, so it's probably technically actually even cheaper now, inflation, everything considered. Yeah, and it's not bad, but I have found this tea to be a little inconsistent. Right before hitting record, I was reading up on kind of the W2T description. Talks about it being thicker with sort of a berry-like sweetness. And I would say on most of the sessions, I have not had anything like that at all. But today, I'm actually getting it. So right at the end of the cake, I'm like, okay, I was ready to say that the description and my experiences don't necessarily line up one-to-one, but now I'm actually getting kind of that profile a little bit more. I have loaded this pot up with leaves, so I'm using, I think, about 9.3 grams for this big old chunker, which is, I forget what the size is, 150, 170 milliliters. And it is absolutely having kind of like this thicker body and this berry sweetness. I would say before, the tea was not particularly sweet. Texturally, it was a little thinner as well. So just yesterday, I was brewing this tea, and I was kind of jotting down notes in preparation for this episode, and I just about had to toss those notes out because the tea has differed. So it's interesting. It's not quite the same steep in, steep out. And I was using very similar parameters yesterday. And at first I thought it might be because I was just using a little more leaf. Maybe if I amped it back down to 7 grams or something like that, it would have a little more of that sweetness. But I have not found that to be the case. Anyways, let's drink this. A little bit of that graininess that you'd expect from ripe. And yeah, today it is pretty solid, but my rating is going to be kind of a not rating just the tea, how it's performing today, but kind of just overall. I would say as far as the W2T ripes, I definitely prefer something like the Camphor Knot over this. That's just far more kind of like the style of ripe I prefer. It's not necessarily a more complex style, but it's one that kind of has just that heavy woodiness that I really care for. Not to say that this tea is not woody, but the Camphor Knot, for those of you that are familiar with it, it has a very distinct profile. As is typical for my ripe drinking, I had this tea earlier this morning with my wife, and now we are something at like steep 5 and 6. Last one maybe being 5, this one being 6. So at the point where I probably should start to push this just a touch more. But let's see how it is doing. So brewing sort of this very like dark, very pretty red color. Take a quick smell of this. Smell definitely dying down a bit. I would say longevity wise this is a little weaker than the Year of the Rat that I have been drinking pretty recently. No idea what regions this could be. And it's interesting. I would say that Munghai Tea Factory teas and to some extent Yunnan sourcing teas will often have this fairly generic ripe base to it. And I think sometimes when it comes to other boutiques, W2T may be that you don't have that quite in spades. And I kind of like it when that's there. So for me at least, this is perfectly drinkable. I'm happy to drink this regularly, but it's not quite hitting the spot in a satisfying way in the way that those do. Today it's actually better, I would say, than previous sessions have been. Very clean, very still easy to drink. I would say this might be a nice ripe drinker for those that are newer to the genre. This is pretty inoffensive, I'd say, as it goes. Just a very clean profile to it. So while it is certainly ripe Pu'erh, it doesn't have any of that stank or anything like that. And yeah. So I Actually, for this tea, more than usual, I'd be really curious to hear what your different opinions are. It makes me want to try a few more of the W2T ripes, and perhaps I'll do that as sometime in the near future. I'm going to be moving on to the next ripe from W2T as sort of the next cake to get through. I just polished off the last of this, as well as the last of the Yunnan sourcing year of the rat. And yeah, it is kind of interesting. I'd say the body is still a little on the thin end, but it's thicker than it has been before. Yeah, it's easy to drink, but I think for me at least, this is just okay. So rating wise, going to give this a 5.5 rating. It's not my absolute favorite, but I do chalk a little bit of that up to personal preference and what I care for. This is kind of on the polar opposite of stuff like the Yeon that I'm drinking regularly. It's just a little too thin and doesn't have enough of that kind of ripe base that I really like. Alright, so thank you all for tuning in. Let me know how you like this episode. Let me know if you've tried this ripe or if you've tried any of the W2T ripes that you would recommend. And I will see y'all next time. Cheers.